What? Now? Now is this working? Yeah. Man, why was it so complicated to make that work anyway? Uh, everything is in place. I think I can't. Yeah, I can't scream. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, uh, why does it work so weird, brother? Uh, whatever. The point is that here we are. Yeah. Also, I am already feeling weird. I like this so much. Anyway, let me. Uh, yeah. Anyway, I. Okay. Here we are. Uh, almost like 5 minutes late. I had to, for some reason, try to troubleshoot the. What was it? The so Kino moment of the mic being for some reason extremely loud. Anyways, it works. Also, I think I fixed. I tried my best at the very least, yeah, to fix how it looks. The whole, what is it? The whole thing looks. I didn't realize that it was having some fitting issues. I think I never had the capacity to pay that much attention to it. So yeah, um, now we have the windows even more properly displayed, I guess. Uh, Sort of. Let me check. I think also the issue is that I I never paid. No, not that I didn't want to. It was more like I didn't have. Yeah, yeah. Okay, there it is. It's perfect like that. Basically, yeah. There was like too much empty space for some reason, and also I wasn't getting everything from these windows. So whatever. The point. That's like technical stuff. It doesn't matter as much. This also counts as a sort of narration, I guess. So we are here to continue with that. I try my best, I guess, to not get as intoxicated. It's useful, to be capable of sitting down and doing the stuff that you want without suffering altered states of consciousness. Is that something controversial to say? Probably not, but at the same time, I don't know. It's like utterly normalized in places in which it shouldn't be. So yeah, it's just that. Here we are. After how long has it been? I don't remember, like a week since the last time that we read something. So yeah, today today we have the Mahabaharata. Continuing with that, Canto 208, Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. I don't know. I feel I have yeah, clarification before anything else. I guess yeah. I do feel already weird, so I hope it doesn't have to be like one of those short episodes. I was actually looking forward to this. So yeah, let's see how much we can do. I guess I have come to understand that taking into consideration how everything works here, like 20 pages or so is a good enough amount of materials, that implying that they are not as heavy as the last ones that we have been reading. Um, as always, I try to revise a little bit what we read before getting here. And yeah, all of this stuff is like weird. Not weird, but rather incredibly full of stuff that could be in any way discussed, but there are so many interpretations that I guess it becomes complicated to say anything actual. It's like, yeah, it opens itself to the possibility of analysis, but it doesn't really belong to the realm of stuff that you might grow to be better from if you analyze it. As let's say, it's a sort of, yeah. I can try to pay attention to this thing, and I can try to discover what it says, but I might also try to read the text and utilize it to, I guess, confirm my own biases, something along those lines. So it's complicated to get any proper lesson, I guess. It talks out way too many hypothetical things. I guess I don't really consider that sort of stuff in the daily, but we have systems of communication. Let's start with this here. We have systems of communication, and something that sadly happens inside of books like this one is we end up seeing that sadly, yeah, what we find is not a precise explanation of things, but rather, even in the most descriptive lessons, there are empty spaces that can be filled with multiple meanings. So it becomes complicated to make sure that the explanation that ends up being given feels not only correct, it goes beyond correctness. It's more along the lines of something that everybody here can find as reasonable enough. Everything else that is said possesses a degree of truthness to it, but at the same time, what also happens is sadly, all of this stuff, for some reason, all of these ideas do not have one concise final point. In the end, when you apply the concepts to reality, they lead to way too many other consequences. So that complicates the analysis, I guess. But that's more like a personal problem, I assume. The reality and the most important thing, as always, is to at the very least be capable of continuing with the analysis of the text. So, yeah, just wanted to say that, I guess, to at least acknowledge that, yeah, in some cases, I do feel like the conclusion that I get to is not really a good general conclusion. It's unavoidably just my own analysis of what we are reading, my own supposition of the ideas and whatnot. I think, let's say like this, to some degree, if I found something like this out there, I may not feel as happy. How am I? I'm I'm very happy. Also, Paul, does it say Paul? I'm not political, but good evening. Welcome, Tiger Salary. Man who is tired, who gets a salary for it. Ah, sorry, but yeah. Uh, the text you read are so confusing. They're like, if a nightmare was in text form, I guess so. I mean, I don't really. I guess to some degree, let's say like this, yeah. They are very fantastical, they are funny, nonetheless, they have that value of, um, they don't really talk about things that are precise, so everything is sort of a spiritual, and spirituality in itself was, in its most basic form, found within those, yeah, uh, dream-esque type of situations. So it's, truth can also maintain lies. What? Did it say that somewhere? When live, truth sometimes leads to the triumph of truth, but conversely, truth. Ah, yeah. Don't worry. Okay, we're going to see. We're going to see. I guess, yeah. Also, I'm not going to lie. They have like a lot of stuff. Even if it's sort of incredibly out there, it has a lot of other stuff that can lead to conclusions and whatnot. Um, shouldn't we strive for the end of our lives, or would lies also exist? I mean, I don't. I don't really know exactly which point is the text making yet. I haven't really read this one. I guess I was what why I was I was going on a rant for like, oh yeah, you know, sometimes I feel like I get just a subjective explanation, not really a good consensus on what the opinion that the text tries to share is. That's what I was trying to say. I guess I should actually read what this one canto is about. It's more like the general narration of from one perspective. From there, yeah, we can enter into discussion with the text. I assume that it is ultimately useful to try to have something along the lines of universal truth without no other lies, but at the same time, this doesn't come from nowhere. These people, the Hindus and whatnot, they do believe in lots of stuff that relates to the duality of souls and how sometimes you have to do bad stuff to justify a greater good. It's like they have a completely different consensus. So, no, not consensus, but rather. Also, what the fuck was that? Why did it come out so weird? Give me like half a second. Okay, there it is. Sorry. Um, but yeah, they have like a different way in which they conceptualize the world. What I was trying to say is this is spiritual. Spirituality itself is a lot more full of contradictions. So that's also why we can analyze it and say, oh yeah, you know what, you shouldn't kill. But also we have examples of heroes who have killed thousands of people. We're reading out like great warriors who I don't they are not precise, so I cannot really give you a good number, but it's like they kill millions of people for some reason, and they are still heroes. So uh, I don't know. My opinion is, yeah, we should try to have no lies. The text's opinion, I guess, is something along the lines of it depends. The gods themselves ordain that the world necessitates some sort of chaos. Even more, if we live in more chaotic eras, there will be times in which lies are a necessary requirement for the existence of life. So yeah, depending on where we are standing with that. But yeah, I guess, let me try to start reading. I don't know. What was I trying to say before? I guess, yeah, also. Like, what I was aiming for was in the whole process of saying that when organizing this, not analysis, but more like uh, reading plus revision of what is being explained, the act of demystifying to some degree what is being mentioned, I also have like an incredibly hard time from my own perspective in terms of this comes from the Hindus and the Hinduistic beliefs about their gods and their 108 gods or something like that, basically, or 108 major most recognized gods, plus all the other deities of lower tiers. So, uh, not only that exists in India, there are like many more other cultures. I have to, I have to read everything else. I don't know. It's like a gigantic task to read the whole lore of humanity. That's my whole point, basically. I don't know. Read the Mahabaharata, but when you do so, you will find out also that most of the ideas are related to other stuff. Even if just subtly, it is related to other discussions of the time. Like there is a lot of astrology for some reason. It's like man, it's an interesting. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Let me actually read. Now for real. Uh, Mahabharata study session of the day. What day are we in? 2 of second. September 2nd, 1994. No, September 2nd, 2025. Canto 208. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. O Yudhishthira, the good and compassionate Vatsara then said to the Brahmana, Our elders have handed down to us, by word of mouth, the wisdom of the Sruti, which says that the ways of Dharma are subtle, diverse, and infinite. When life is at stake, and in the matter of marriage, one is permitted to tell an untruth. Untruth sometimes leads to the triumph of truth, but conversely, truth can also maintain lies. Whichever is most conducive to the good of all creatures is considered the truth. Dharma is thus perverted. Mark its subtle ways. Man's actions are either good or bad, and he surely reaps their fruits. The ignorant man, having reached a miserable state, abuses the gods, not knowing that his condition is the consequence of his own evil karma. The foolish, the scheming, and the fickle. Good Brahmana always attain the opposite of happiness. They find misery. Neither learning nor morals nor personal exertion can save them. If the fruits of our efforts were not dependent on anything else, people would gain the object of their desire merely by striving for it. Able, intelligent, and diligent persons are frustrated in their efforts and do not obtain the fruits of their actions. On the other hand, those who live by deception and who harm others thrive. There are some who achieve prosperity without trying too hard, and there are others who, even with the utmost effort, are unable to achieve their ends. Misers worship the gods and practice severe austerities with the object of having sons, and those healthy sons, born in full term, turn out to be a disgrace to their family, whereas others born under the same circumstances live decent and comfortable lives, enjoying the wealth passed down to them by their ancestors. The diseases that a man suffers from are undoubtedly the result of his own karma, which traps him like a small deer in a hunter's hands, and he suffers agony, and, O Brahmana, just as a hunter cuts off the flight of his quarry, skillful physicians check the progress of the disease with their medicines. The most devout and knowledgeable men say that those who have the wherewithal to enjoy the good things that life has to offer are prevented from doing so because of chronic bowel disorders. They say that many that are strong and powerful suffer and have a great difficulty earning a livelihood. They say that every man is helpless, overcome by sorrow and illusion, and repeatedly tossed about and dragged under by the powerful current of his own actions, his karma. If there were absolute freedom of action, no creature would die, none would decay, none would have to await his doom, and every man would attain the object of his desire. Everyone wants to outdistance his neighbors in the race of life, and men strive to the utmost of their power to this end, but the result is unpredictable. Many are born under the influence of the same star and the same astrological concatenations, but there is a great diversity in the maturity of their actions. The Vihotama, no person can be the dispenser of his own lot. The actions done in a previous existence bear fruit in our present life. The soul is eternal and everlasting, but the physical body is impermanent and is destroyed in this world. So, when life is extinguished, it is only the body that is destroyed. The soul, bonded to its actions, lives on to take birth in another body. The Brahmana replied, "O learned one, you have grasped the mysteries of karma are expert at this course. I want to know how the soul becomes immortal." The Vajra replied, "The spirit does not die, it only rehouses itself. Those who foolishly say that all creatures die are mistaken. The soul fits itself to another frame, and its change of home is called death. In the world of men, no man lives the consequences of another man's karma. He reaps the consequences of what he does. The consequences of actions, once done, cannot be avoided. The virtuous become endowed with great virtues, and sinful men become the perpetrators of evil deeds. Men's karma follows them and influences the conditions of their birth. The Brahmana asked, "Why does the spirit take it? Sorry, why does the spirit take its birth, and how does it become sinful or virtuous? And how, excellent one, does it come to belong to a sinful or virtuous man?" The Vajra replied, "This mystery has to do with procreation. I shall briefly describe it to you. Brahmanottama, how the soul is born again with its accumulated load of karma, the righteous soul in the virtuous and evil soul in the sinful. Through the performance of virtuous actions, it reaches the state of the celestials, and by a combination of good and evil, it acquires the human condition. By indulging in sensual and debased ways, it is born into the lower species of animals, and by outright sin, it goes to Naraka, to hell. Afflicted with the miseries of birth, death, and old age, man is fated to rot from the consequences of his own actions. Passing through thousands of births and through Naraka, our spirits wander, bound by ropes of their own karma. Animate beings become miserable in the next world because of their own actions, and as a result of those miseries, they assume lower births and go on to accumulate new karma. They suffer again, like sickly men eating unwholesome food. And although they are thus afflicted, they think that they are happy and at ease, and consequently their fetters remain in place, and more fresh karma walls. Suffering from all kinds of grief, they spin about dizzily in this world like a loose wheel. If they shrug off their bonds and purify themselves by their actions, and if they practice penance and tapasya, then over Brahmanutama they attain mukti. By casting off their karmic fetters and through purifying deeds, men reach that blissful state where misery is unknown. The sinful man who is addicted to vice never stops being iniquitous. So must we strive to do what is good and desist from doing what is wrong. The person who, with wholehearted gratitude and freedom from malice, strives to do good, attains the four Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Yeah, it's Dharma, Artha, Karma, and Moksha. Those who are purified of sins, wise, forbearing, steadfast in Dharma, and self restrained, enjoy uninterrupted well being in this world and the next. Man must live by the standards of the good and emulate the righteous. There are many learned and virtuous men who are versed in the Shastras. It is man's Dharma to follow his own inherent vocation, his Svadharma, which prevents confusion. The wise man delights in building on life by righteousness. Brahmanottama. Such a man, with his acquired wealth of righteousness, waters the root of the particular plant of Dharma in which he finds the most virtue. Thus does the godly man calm and still his mind. He is pleased with his friends and in this world and also attains happiness in the next. Virtuous persons, excellent one, acquire authority and enjoy the pleasures of beauty, flavor, sound, and touch as they wish. These are the rewards of Dharma. However, excellent Brahmana, the enlightened man is not satisfied with reaping the fruits of righteousness. Not content with that, and with the light of a spiritual wisdom that resides in him, he becomes indifferent to pain and pleasure. He is unaffected by evil. He chooses to give up worldly pursuits, but he does not forsake Dharma. Realizing that everything in this world is transient, he attempts to renounce it all. He does not rely on chance, but decides the means of attaining his salvation. So, renouncing all worldly pleasures and avoiding sin, he becomes pure and, at last, attains moksha. Spiritual wisdom is the main requirement for man to attain salvation, and surrender and patience are its roots. By this means he achieves all that he desires. By subduing the senses and by a life of thoughtfulness and fortitude, he attains, over Brahmana, the supreme state of Brahman. The Brahmana asks, O most devout of men, what are these senses you speak of, and how are they subdued? What does what does one gain by subduing the senses, and how does one get the benefits of it? I want to know about these things, says Markandeya. Okay, that's Canto 208. Good enough. Uh, Vast explanation. I don't know if there is, besides, I guess, the most particular words, Dharma. What does Dharma mean in this context? Dharma is the sort of what was described here as the state of bliss. Dharma becomes the objective of not just happiness in the normal sense that we can utilize it as. In the West, Dharma encompasses also the total existence of complete satisfaction found only in the possession of those other realms of life in which, yeah, joyfully enough, we get to have a sufficiently good enough existence so that we can not worry about all the other things that existence might provide to us. That's, I guess, the most basic analysis of what the Dharma is. In this case, yeah, it's just a continuous discussion. It has been basically that for the last, I don't know, 3 4 cantos, how to attain Dharma and the many requisites and conditions and ways of attaining that, and what it also means, what it entails, what comes from that, how it comes to be, and whatnot. This whole discussion of, oh, yeah, yeah, because men also possess this idea that is karma, karma ordains your Dharma. You also don't have not only karma and dharma, karma being the consequence of your actions, dharma being the state in which you find yourself, but also svadharma, which is the goal of your life, that you can identify yourself with the most that supposedly is the correct one, based on how this idea of reincarnation and such works. The moment in which you find a thing that you say you like, and not just something that you like, but rather that you can identify in your own existence as the most important thing that gives you some sort of meaning, that one reason, besides the adoration of gods and whatnot, is what also gives you the possibility of possessing a good enough svadharma that, once again, both karma and dharma require to be of the positive kind, of the good kind, basically. And yeah, having knowledge about sacred text and whatnot helps on it, and similar situations, I guess. Also, to mention this, which was like the first thing that was pointed out, not by me, by Darth Salderman, in this whole idea was basically what matters is to create a proper dharma, to be capable of realizing that, yeah, the line that the thesis, hypothesis, or antithesis, when life is at stake, and in the matter of marriage, one is permitted to tell an untruth, and truth sometimes leads to the triumph of truth, but conversely, the truth can also maintain lies, and truth sometimes leads to the triumph of truth. Thesis, truth can also maintain lies. Antithesis, whichever is most conducive to the good of all creatures is considered the truth. Synthesis of the argument, and further synthesis based on the basic premise of what we require to have is a good enough dharma that don't lead, yeah, that doesn't lead to any bad state in our own existence. Dharma is thus perverted once we allow a stuff that alters what truth itself is, because we allow the existence of things that we can otherwise realize are negative, like lies. Dharma finds itself to be affected, and the way in which we experience life itself is also negatively afflicted with, once we start to allow those sort of actions and whatnot. In this case, I guess, when life is at stake and in the matter of marriage, one is permitted to tell an untruth. I guess it's, yeah, basically trying to explain this idea of, yeah, there are some things that we can lie in, and whatnot, the most important of those conditions, which directly also in relationship with our culture, basically, taking into consideration how they think, how the stuff and whatnot, that to some degree you need to unavoidably marry yourself and have children based on how they conceive the world. One of the conditions, I think it is, of dharma is to have like heritage, in any kind of heritage in your name, even if you don't get to have sons because you're one of the many eunuchs, or however you say that, people, uh, voluntary celibates, let's say like that, gurus of sorts, who live like that. Unless you are those sort of people who commit themselves to that sort of existence, you are obliged to have descendants to ensure that your future is a good one, and that also you don't desecrate the existence of your ancestors. But yeah, um, I guess I can also try to bring that into discussion. There is, let me try to find stuff of that sort. Misers worship the gods and practice severe austerities with the object of having sons, and those healthy sons born in full term turn out to be a disgrace to their family, whereas others born under the same circumstances live decent and comfortable lives, enjoying the wealth passed down to them by their ancestors. This idea, to some degree, this idea is pretty much what can explain in conjunction with what I was saying before, the way in which stuff works. You worship your gods, your deities, by having sons, by having children. Those who do so correctly get to ensure that whole bloodline gets to ensure its existence in time because you amass wealth. It's, I don't want to say it in a charismatic way, but it's a mentality in which you allow your existence to be predicated in the promise that you are going to be first and foremost, quote unquote, honoring the spirits, yeah, the deceased spirits and wills of your ancestors, while also making sure that as long as your descendants are also good, you will also be honored. The idea is ensure the bloodline. In this case, the medium utilized to reach this conclusion is, yeah, maybe the gods ordained so to be the case, and that we are obliged to have a heritage and whatnot. Um, but the main concept is that basically you want the removal of the spiritual idea, do not make it so confusing. Basically, that try to have sons. You will gain, the people who came before you gains, and the people who will be coming after you will also gain if you did everything else right. We are giving you a complete guide on how to live a useful existence. Therefore, it should not be complicated for you to have a proper existence that leads to good consequences. That's the idea. So yeah, what else? I don't know. I guess there are other stuff like, oh yeah, the karma, the diseases that a man suffers from are undoubtedly the results of his own karma. To some degree, yeah, to some other degree, no. You have psychosomatic stuff that is unavoidably consequences of karma of the human being who produced such previous altering events in their own existence. But also you have stuff like what we already know nowadays is uh, more life-threatening diseases, sort of illness, in which, oh yeah, you know what, um, we are so contaminated that at some point even mosquitoes started to carry a dangerous virus. Let's say like this, maybe it was, I don't know, the karma of the first guy who, I think it's easier with sida, or with those HIV. That's the good example. There are some sicknesses that shouldn't have happened at all, shouldn't have appeared. Um, but because people literally did incredibly wrong stuff, we have them existing now. Okay, the first person carries the karma of that action, but after that, at this point in time, you cannot really alter if you get it or not. It is unavoidable for you to some degree, or it's something that you cannot really say, oh yeah, you know what, today I will make sure that I don't get bitten by a mosquito who carries malaria or something like that, you know. So unavoidably, also not mentioning all the other stuff, like, oh yeah, you know what, I turn out to have something like cancer because I live in a big city, and it is full of contamination almost every single day. Maybe you literally cannot change that. It depends to which degree you wanted to say that. The diseases that a man suffers from are undoubtedly the result of his own karma. Sort of. But the most basic level, yeah. I guess, what was it? The most devout and knowledgeable men say that those who have the wherewithal to ensure the good things that life has to offer are prevented from doing so because of chronic bowel disorders. That is like completely different. A chronic bowel disorder of sorts, of almost any sort, is completely different from, oh yeah, I don't know. I got in an accident one day and I lost both legs. It's not the same. That's why also it's complicated depending on which description of sickness we're utilizing. It provides a basic explanation, but once you start to forget that it's also incredibly rudimentary in the ways in which it talks out the stuff and the degree of coverage that it makes for much more detailed terms that we possess nowadays, that sort of stuff alters a lot more the consequence of how you can interpret these sort of texts. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I don't know. Once again, also, uh, karma leading to consequences of any sort. If there were any absolute freedom of action, no creature would die, none will decay, none will have to await his doom. Blah blah blah. Um, those are like the promises. That's not so complicated. Those are the promises of, oh yeah, everybody gets to do the right thing. Then these are the benefits that we all get to enjoy, and also implying that we can't ever change ourselves properly. There are some other conditions that might bring forward these rewards to all who, at the very least, while they were alive, will now get to harvest them. Everyone else might also die and live, I don't know, in pain, in hell, whatever you wanna call it, in a different state in which the consequences are not as positive as us, but we who fulfilled also our positions and properly followed the rules will get to have these other benefits, like what was already described, the wheel of time, the these people utilize. Basically, there are like four main eras. We are supposedly in in the second or third era, and the idea is just that, yeah, we are in a time in which there are many more bad consequences. But once the time frames keep moving in the bigger scheme of life, there will be once again a time in which everyone gets to enjoy those benefits. Absolute freedom of action. No dying, no death, no decaying, no blah 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 blah. Also, yeah, this is what I was trying to mention. Many are born under the influence of the same star and the same astrological concatenations. They had a lot of. I don't want to say it incorrectly. I think it's called Zoroastrianism, so something like that. And yeah, I know barely about Vedic ideas and whatnot. I don't have almost anything read about how to interpret the skies, I guess, but very slowly working. Yeah, yeah. The whole idea of karma. This is like a very basic idea. Oh, not even something worth commenting. It's yet again an explanation of how the wheel of karma works. You do good karma stuff, you get reincarnated into a better life state. You do bad karma stuff, you get reincarnated into not even a human. And maybe if you did wrong enough, directly as me, I think the conception is as a human, but in hell to suffer punishment for your actions. So yeah, um, blah. The person who with wholehearted gratitude, yeah, this is how you liberate your already bad karma filled um, soul from all of its weights, I guess, and something else. Spiritual wisdom is the main requirement for man to attain salvation. Yeah, I guess that's. I guess that's unavoidably sort of important. In these sort of conceptions, even if you do everything good, if you are not aligned with some sort of deity, you're not going to find salvation in your actions. It's like the most basic remark, but yeah, these people don't have the conception of a god as strong as we do nowadays. In comparison to how they didn't realize that the figures of deities played such an important role. They accepted them without so much questioning. Now we can have the discussion of, oh, well, yeah, but you are utilizing God to justify your existence and whatnot. In those times, it was either to have a God or to live a miserable life. There was no other discussion to have. There was no awareness of the concept of God beside the already discussed things. There was no category of a hypothetical God that we can all of us refer ourselves to. Like there was no discussion of, oh yeah, yeah, these other gods that exist. We have similar concepts of spirituality. Let's say no. If people like this one, you take a average, sorry, an average Hindu, and you put it in front of a Christian, and what you are going to find if you take somebody who was, let's say, from the times from which these scriptures were made and from the times from which the Bible was made, was that both will have arguments for why what happens is not that, oh yeah, they are talking about gods who are similar. No, they are talking about demons who utilize the shapes of gods. Both sides have literally the same thing. It's like I don't remember exactly. Also, I don't. It's like an incredibly complicated discussion. That one, I don't know why I need to get the whole example out, but let me try to finish it to not have the idea unaddressed. It's this concept of what happens is in the Christian conception of other deities, they are basically embodiments of demons and whatnot to tempt the soul, the mind, and whatnot. And in the conception of here of the Hindus, it was basically um, you have the devas who are supposedly the good guys, and you have they are like Onis or something like that. I don't remember exactly their name right now, but yeah, basically bad guys. They tempt people to do bad things that retroactively end up hurting gods as a consequence of that. It's like the demons in the Hindus tradition cannot hurt so much the gods directly, they need to do so through the action of humans themselves. So they tempt the humans. And one of the main temptations is to create other gods that do not exist in the main conception of religions that they have. So yeah, that's why it's at this stage it's complicated to talk about that because they are still enclosed in those ways of perceiving it. One of the many advantages that we gain once we keep on progressing with the with the understanding about any idea that is in reference to gods and deities and whatnot is the capacity to have this categorical hypothetical god figure or spiritual figure besides just the main gods which we know ourselves, and the capacity to just observe that in a certain way in gods are just names given to traditions that every single culture follows. Let's say like that. It's still incredibly bare bones and overly reductionist, but it's something that sort of already round up the idea. So yeah. Anyways, let me let me continue reading. Let me drink something and continue reading. One second, that's Canto 208. Let me. How? Yeah. Let me. I'm trying to. Okay, it's going to be easy. Don't worry. We only did like 4 pages. Took like 20 minutes. No problem. 20 minutes? It took like 30 minutes. Don't worry. Next canto will take only 5. Trust in me, brother. Let me continue. The Canto 209. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. Oh, here. O Yudhishthira, what the virtuous Vatsara said when the Brahmana questioned him. He said, men begin by bending their minds to the acquisition of knowledge. Once that end is met, they work on great tasks and then indulge their desires and the pleasures of the senses. Beauty, taste, and so on, dharma, art, and kama. Attachment follows, then envy, then avarice, and the light of spirituality is extinguished. When men are influenced by avarice and overcome by envy and attachment, dharma no longer guides their minds, and their lives become a mockery of virtue. Practicing dharma with hypocrisy, they are content to acquire wealth dishonorably, and with this ill-gotten wealth, their minds become enamored of evil ways, and they are filled with a desire to sin. And Groot Brahmana, when their friends and wise men try to dissuade them, they answer with sophistry, neither sound nor convincing. Their addiction to evil makes them sin in thought, word, and deed, and kills all their good qualities. And these evil men cultivate other evil ones as friends. They suffer misery in this world as well as in the next. This is the simple man's nature. Now, hear about the man of virtue. He discerns evil with spiritual insight and is able to discriminate between joy and grief. He is respectfully attentive to men of wisdom and from practicing virtue. His soul leans towards Dharma. The Brahmana said, you have explained Dharma to me in a way that no one else could. Your spiritual power is great. You seem to be a great sage. The Vajra replied, we worship the great Brahmanas with the same honor that we give our ancestors, and we always propitiate them before anyone else with offerings of food. In this world, wise men put their hearts into doing what pleases them. I will now describe to you what pleases them, but first I will bow in reverence to Brahmanas as a Varna. Learn the Brahmana Dharma from me. This whole universe is unconquerable in its totality and is made of the Panchamahabhutas, the five great elements. It is Brahman and there is nothing higher. The earth, air, water, fire, and sky are the Mahabhutas, and from odor, sound, touch, and taste are their characteristic properties. These properties, too, have their own properties. Three qualities characterize each property, and of them, consciousness, also called the mind, is the most important. In seventh place is intelligence, and after that comes egoism. Then come the five senses, then the soul, then the moral gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. These 17 are the abstract or incomprehensible qualities. Now that I have described all this to you, is there anything else you want to know? Said the vendor of meat. That's Canto 209. I say it like as a joke. This is actually going to be like 5 minutes. I guess there is truly nothing. I don't know. It's just a basic explanation. Continuing with what I already said before, yeah, this is yet another explanation of what happens to the good person and the bad person. The good Dharma man and the bad Dharma man, and how the consequences happen, what those are, how these propagate in life, how you get to differentiate between them, and whatnot. Um, I guess that the most basic discussion here, or the most necessary, useful discussion that we didn't have so far previously, was also the addition of the elements, the the things that this conform in the rest of reality, and besides that, also the things that pertain in humans make them obtain what we have already supposedly spent so much time defining as either good or bad. It's like a more, yeah, I guess the correlation here is by getting slowly to understand this, you also supposedly are getting more and more closer to the realization of what are the particular things that you personally have to do. It's like the utilization of general statements to make the person who is reading this slowly find out and realize, okay, uh, everything else is in this apparatus of discussion, everything else is sort of directed at other people, and you can realize that much more. But there are also moments in which the text becomes a lot less specific. They become more general statements that seem to be aimed at the reader, who is also tasked, or I guess is presented at least with the possibility of interpreting what is being talked about as something that attains to their own existence and whatnot. If you get to properly make the connection between what are the different elements, the different qualities of those elements, or characteristic properties as they mention them here, and thus how these also order the qualities of the human being, you slowly get to come into contact with the rest of the explanations that order and make sense of what in general any human needs to have, so that the whole previous discussion about what are the good things, bad things, and the different modes of existence utilized by different people of different places, of not places, of different castes, is referring to. Uh, that whole discussion also applies to this stuff, and that whole discussion also allows this thing to make a lot more, I guess, sense in a way, if you get the point. It's like all of this was being a discussion between. Now I finally fully remember the context. A discussion between a Brahmana, as in a spiritually oriented person, and a butcher who attained illumination in terms of knowing always and only speaking the truth. So, what happens here is you have the partial responses to the Brahmana, but you also have the general statements that allow the Brahmana who supposedly is reading these parts of the Mahabharata to find the reasoning behind them and to construct a solid enough argument so that they also gain something that makes them understand, so to speak, and that makes them be closer to Dharma and Karma and whatnot. I guess another part of processing the Vedas is to read this stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, do I have something else? I don't really see that much more. I guess no, no, no. I guess no. I don't really have that much more to say. I think it's not meaningless. That is a really. It is already a very short uh, canto, so better to just keep moving on. There is no idea of value there, I guess. Continuing. Canto 210. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. O Mahabaharata, the Brahmana who found the mid-seller's discourse so pleasing said, Devout one, you said that there are five great elements. Do you describe fully all the lakshanas or properties of any one of the five? The butcher replied, Earth, water, fire, air, and sky all have properties that overlap each other. I will describe them to you. Earth, over Hamana, has five qualities. Water has four. Fire, three. Air and sky together have three. Sound, touch, shape, smell, and taste are the five lakshanas of earth. Sound, touch, shape, and taste belong to water. Sound, touch, and shape are the three properties of fire. Air has two properties, sound and touch, and sound alone is the skies. Oh, Brahmana, these 50 properties that are inherent in the five elements exist in everything of which this universe is made. They are not opposed to one another, but coexist in combinations. When the universe is cast into chaos, then every physical being, in its proper time, assumes a new physical body. Each of these bodily receptacles comes to life and die in their due order. There are five elementary substances of which all the mobile and immobile world is composed. Whatever the senses can perceive is called Vyakta, knowable or comprehensible. And whatever is beyond the reach of the senses and can only be perceived by the imagination is known as Avyakta. When a person sets out on the quest for Atmagyana, knowledge of the self, after having subdued the senses, which have their own roles to play in relation to the external world, then he sees his own soul pervading the universe, and the universe reflected in himself. The man who is bound to his previous karma, though learned in the highest spiritual wisdom, can only know his soul's subjective existence. But he whose soul is unaffected by the conditions around him is never subject to sorrow, because his soul has absorbed the spirit of Brahman. When a man has overcome the influence of illusion, his human virtues, consisting of the essence of a spiritual wisdom, return to spiritual enlightenment, which illumines the minds of all beings. The omnipotent spirit regards such a man as one who is without beginning or end, who is self existent, unchangeable, without material form, and incomparable. This Brahmana is the result of self discipline, and this self discipline can only be acquired by subduing the senses. It cannot be otherwise, because heaven and hell are both dependent on our senses. When subdued, they lead to swarga. When indulged in, they lead to ruin. The subjugation of the senses is the highest path to spiritual enlightenment. Our senses are at the root of our spiritual advancement as well as of our spiritual downfall. By indulging them, a man becomes addicted to vice, and by subduing them, he attains salvation. The self-restrained person who acquires mastery over the six senses is never tainted with sin, and evil has no power over him. Man's physical body has been compared to a chariot, his soul to a charioteer, and his senses to a horses. A dexterous man drives about without confusion, like a confident charioteer with well-broken horses. That man who knows how to wield the reins of spiritual horses, the six senses inherent in our nature, is an excellent charioteer. When our senses become uncontrollable, like swift horses, given their heads on the open road, we must patiently rein them in, for with patience we can bring them under control. When a man's mind is overpowered by any one of the senses, running wild, he loses his reason and becomes like a ship tossed by storms on the high seas. Men allow illusion to deceive them, with the hope of reaping the fruit of those six senses. The effects of these six are studied by men of spiritual insight, and they are the ones who reap the rewards of their clear perception, said the meat vendor. What? Okay. I get Canto 210. There is doing with something. We were talking about five senses, but then not five senses, five elements, which also contrast with the senses. Then a sixth sense appeared for some reason later on. I don't really like that part particularly. I guess, yeah, unavoidably sometimes. These texts tend to slip in stuff that you weren't having at all mentioned so far. So that's also why it feels bad to. Oh yeah, we are talking literally in this canto only about five senses. Then for some reason the whole description changes to six. Uh, Whatever. The point still is valid and understandable that yeah, basically the people who get to control their senses, to control their karma, to control their lives, get to enjoy good enough, solid enough lives, existences which bring term, bring term, bring them. That's what I'm trying to say. Bring them any sort of pleasure. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And otherwise, yeah, allowing senses to guide your existence will lead only to uh, it said here, ruin to your own downfall, basically. But yeah, but is it really necessary to elaborate why? I guess that I don't really, yeah, I can only assume one of the many issues of being here is not having the capacity to properly explain, fully explain, if stuff of this sort is actually an objective explanation, an objective reasoning about just the nature of existence, or more of a subjective analysis in terms of, you know what, the human shares these qualities with the rest of animals. And we can hint at that. We cannot directly say that. It might sound bad if we say that, but what we can say is, yeah, we as human beings share all of that. The more you follow that, not only you harm yourself, you harm your future existences, but also the less you pay attention to them, the more you get to enjoy your own existence in a way in which you're not suffering as much. And when doing so, when ensuring that you have all of that going on, you get also to have many more pleasures to happen and to exist in the rest of your life, you know? So, I don't think it's that wild of a concept or of a conclusion, yeah. Leave your senses behind. Leave the more animalistic essence behind to attain that thing which only humans possess. That's also, I guess, was it here or yeah, it was here. The 15 properties that are inherent in the five elements exist in everything of which this universe is made. They are not opposed to one another but coexist. No. Uh, Five elementary substances of which all the mobile and mobile worlds is composed. Whatever, yeah. Vyaka, Abhyakta, no. What is it? Person sets out. Atma Jnana. Knowledge of the self. That. That is the sixth sense. The knowledge of the self is the sixth sense which the rest of animals do not get to have. The Atma Jnana, that stuff, is what makes this matter so much. But yeah, that's it, I guess. Canto 210, continuing. Canto 211. No, let me ring some water. But yeah, continuing. Uh, Canto 211. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continued. Mahabaharata, the Brahman listened attentively to the meat seller's discourse and asked him, describe the qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas to me. The butcher replied, I will describe each of their characteristics separately. Listen. Tamas is characterized by spiritual delusion. Rajas incites men to action. Sattva is of great splendor and the greatest of the three. He who is spiritually ignorant, foolish, and a dreamer, who is idle, apathetic, and swayed by anger and arrogance, is under the influence of tamas. The man who speaks pleasantly, who is thoughtful and free from envy, and who is industrious because he wishes to benefit from his hard work, and who is compassionate, is influenced by rajas. He who is resolute and patient, who has no anger, who is free from malice, and who is wise and forbearing, who does not work out of a desire to benefit from his work, is said to be under the influence of sattva. When a sattvic man allows himself to be influenced by worldliness, he is unhappy, but he shuns it when he realizes its significance. Then he begins to feel indifferent to worldly matters. His pride decreases, and righteousness increases, and he reconciles the values that are in conflict within him. Conscious self restraint becomes unnecessary. A man may be born a Sudra, but if he has sattva, he can attain a level of Vaisya. What? He can attain the level of a Vaisya or of a Kshatriya. And if he is steadfast in Dharma, he can become equal to a Brahmana. I have described the gunas to you. Is there anything else you wish to know? Said the meat vendor. I think this is like, I don't know, one of the most important lines that we have gotten to read. Probably this is Yeah, this takes a while. Canto 211, but this takes wow. Think this is talking about the way in which newer traditions got to replace the caste system, the way in which they organize themselves socially, basically. The creation of this new quality what institution, basically, that makes even Sudras, the lowest quote unquote race amongst that people, gain the possibility of attaining maximum bliss in their own existence. The three, what is it? The qualities of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. What are these? Uh, the three alignments, I guess, of spiritual existence, basically, and how, yeah, basically following the final one being the worst one to have in your life. Um, Rajas, the minimally okay one to have. Tamas, no, Tamas is the worst one. Rajas is the minimally good ones, and Sattva is the ones to aim at the most. With all of that stuff, you get to approach the most divinity in itself, in its final form, and to have as much of a happy existence as anybody can. On a level of this is riddled with the particular determinations that they utilize to talk about what is divine and what is properly divine and what is good enough and what allows the Vedas to be called sacred because they are also allowed with aligned, sorry, with the devas. So all of that stuff that makes this whole discourse the correct one to be reading and not an analysis of the opposing faction talking about their wrong conception of the good things in the world. But yeah, it's interesting. Yes, the complication in itself is also to say he who is resolute and patient, who has no anger, who is free from malice, and who is wise and forbearing, who does not. No, no, no. That's not that part. Uh, when a scientific man, yeah, it was literally the next paragraph. All of this stuff is also complicated, also interesting. When a sattvic man allows himself to be influenced by worldliness, he's unhappy. But he shuns it when he realizes its significance. Then he begins to feel indifferent to worldly matters. His pride decreases and righteousness increases, and he reconciles the values that are in conflict within him. Conscious self restraint becomes unnecessary. I guess it's something along the lines of I, I I don't think that this translation of concepts is the most appropriate one, but if the human is aiming for the most proper happiness, so to speak, they will slowly dismiss whatever else was it that they had in their previous modes of existence to have a more properly happy life. And when doing so, they will also find out that they don't need to actively pay attention to their environment. They will realign themselves sort of automatically. That's the first explanation that I can give. Um, but yeah, that's I don't know. I think it's complicated because once again, this can be utilized. You can extrapolate this from what is being talked about directly in terms of oh yeah, Vedic knowledge and divine knowledge and whatnot. Even a Sattvic man or a Sattvic person can be anybody who possesses enough rationality to some degree. I think that is one of the many differences or possible, plausible explanations that you can give to this text to some degree. That reasoning, logic allows for these levels of solutions within the existence of oneself, let's say. Yeah, does that make sense? I think it's like overly complicated, but it's okay. That's one second. That's Canto 211. I think it was. Yeah. Also, there is a full blank page. Ah, no, no, no. There isn't. That actually took so much to read. Brother, can I? No. Let me. One second. Let me try again. Last time I tried, it went well. So let me do for a second time. I guess I don't know, like 2 minutes of pause, something like that. I will try to breathe, to calm down, to focus literally just uh, on calming down, and after that we continue. But yeah, brother, yeah, that's what I was literally starting this analysis with. In some cases, it's like incredibly easy to read this stuff. In some others, the concepts are like incredibly distant. They are so undefined that you can take them from so many different perspectives if you want. And we just focus on one for the sake of it. We cannot do all 20 arguments that come from every single line. Otherwise, this would be an endless analysis. Even more also because so many things are in conversation with one another, so that also adds another layer of complexity and whatnot. And the linearity of the story itself can also even be argumented to be yet another this positive of communication. So whatever. Let me the point being. Let me bury it for a second. Thank you. I don't know. Count until 50 or so. Let me. Yeah. Okay. I think we can be back. Uh, Anyway, probably I guess at some point, not so far in the future, there is going to be like a tiny so-called idle break. So we are good. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. Uh, Man, what a text. Anyways, let me try to continue. We cannot do literally only 10 pages and say, yeah, you know what, time to wrap it up. It's so fucking depressing. At that rate, we don't move at all. What was it? I have already talked about this. It's like the most fundamental part of this. If we do it at a rate of 7 pages per stream, we are doing it at 0.1% of the book per stream. So that means that we will be here for 1,000 streams. So yeah, goal is at the very least to halve that number. If we do it only on how much? On 14, we are already well enough into 500. And if we can do it in instead 28 or so pages, we are closer to only 250. So yeah, that's also part of the goal. But I don't know. Personally, I don't really consider that much the importance of, yeah, you know what, when you have to think out the spiritual stuff outside of the spirituality of that itself, you have to put a different sort of mechanism into work. It's easy to say, oh yeah, they are talking about gods, and they are giving me principles of existence without any other thought behind it. So Drumpy. But the action of trying to put your mind to work makes it take, I don't know, twice, thrice as much time or energy, not time, sorry, but yeah. Anyway, continuing. Canto 212. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Uh, the Brahmana asked, how does fire, the vital force, combine with earth, matter to become the physical body which houses living spirits, and how does prana, the life force, give the parts of the body in which it resides impetus to act? The Watcher replied, prana, the vital spirit, manifesting itself in the seat of consciousness, sparks the body into action. It is the soul which is present in both that acts. The past, the present, and the future are inseparable from the soul, and it is the highest aspect of any being. It is the essence of the Supreme Spirit, and we adore it. What? It is the life giving principle of all creatures, and it is the eternal spirit, Purusha. It is a splendid. It is the intelligence and the ego. It is the seat of all elements. It is sustained by that subtle life force, prana, while it inhabits a corporeal frame. In all its internal and external interactions with mind or matter. Its being, however, goes its own way by the action of another subtle force called samana. Samana transforms itself into apana, or air, and supported by the top of the stomach, carries the body's waste to the kidneys and intestines. Intestines? Eh, ESL. But anyway, this same force is present in the three elements effort, exertion, and power, and men learn in science have named it Udana. When it manifests itself as at the energy centers of the human system, it is known as Vyana. Vyana disperses heat into the tissues and muscles of the body to transform food and fluids into energy. Vyana combines with prana and the other forces to produce heat, the body's internal energy, which causes digestion. The energy produced the energy, produced by the combination of prana and apana reacts within samana and udana to generate the physical growth of the body that consists of the seven substances, bones, muscles, and the rest. Okay? Apana is that portion of its seat extending as far as the rectum. From there, arteries spread into five forces, of which prana is one. Heat acts on prana, which strikes the extremity of the apana region and recoils to react on the heat. Above the navel is the region of undigested food, and below it the area of digestion. Prana and all the other forces of the body are seated in the navel. The arteries coming from the heart run upwards, downwards, and obliquely. Sorry, obliquely. How do obliquely? Once again. Yes, sir. Thank you. Carrying the essence of our food. The arteries are controlled by the 10 pranic forces. Yogis who have overcome every obstacle and who view all things objectively and impartially, whose souls are interact, find the Supreme Spirit. Prana and Apana are present in beings. The soul or Atman is clothed in corporeal disguise and is present in the 11 elemental physical aspects of life forms. Although eternal and undying, its normal state is altered by its habitat, just as fire burns in a fireplace, constant yet taking the shape of its container. The soul, which is divine, is related to the body in which it lives in the same way as a drop of water that rolls on the slick surface of a lotus leaf. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are the attributes of our life. Life is the attribute of the soul, and the soul is an attribute of the Supreme Brahman. This living principle, which is active in itself and induces activity in its attributes of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, is anchored in inert matter. It is that Brahman by which the seven worlds are incited to action and is called the Most High by man of a spiritual insight. In all these elements, the eternal spirit does not show itself, but can be known by those who are learned in Atmagyana, who have extraordinary vision. A pure minded man, by purifying his heart, can destroy the good and evil karmic effects of his actions and attain eternal bliss by the enlightenment of his inner spirit. That state of peace is compared to the sound sleep of an innocent, happy person, or the steady light of a lamp trimmed by a skillful hand. Of a lamp? A pure man, living on a frugal diet, perceives the Supreme Spirit in his own soul, and by meditating in the evening and the small hours of the night, he sees the Nirguna Paratman, the Supreme Spirit, by the light of his heart, shining like a bright lamp, and so he attains moksha. Greed and anger must somehow be subdued, because self restraint is the most sacred virtue that a man can practice. It is considered the means by which a man can cross the sea of misery. A man must protect his righteousness from being swallowed by the evil consequences of anger. He must safeguard his virtues from his pride. He must protect his learning from vanity and his own spirit from illusion. Liberality is the best of virtues, and forbearance is the most powerful. The knowledge of our inner spiritual nature is the best of all knowledge, and truthfulness the best of all religious duties. Speaking the truth is good, and so is the knowledge of truth. But the greatest good of all creatures is brought about by what we know as the highest truth. He whose actions are not performed for the sake of reward or blessing, he who has sacrificed everything to achieve renunciation, this man is a real sannyasin and is truly wise. No one can teach a man to commune with a Brahman, not even his spiritual guru. To solve the eternal mystery, the guru can only set us on the path, which is to renounce the material world through yoga. We must not harm any creature and must live in peace and friendship with all. In our present existence, we must not avenge ourselves on any creature. Self denial, peace of mind, renunciation of hope, and equanimity are the ways by which enlightenment can be reached. The knowledge of the self is the highest knowledge. In this world, as well as hereafter, a man must fulfill his dharma by renouncing all worldly desires and developing an attitude of stoicism and detachment by which suffering is stilled. The money who wants to have moksha, salvation, which is so difficult to attain, must observe constant austerities, patience, and self restraint. He must give up attachment, which binds him to people and material things. These practices are the attributes of the Brahman. The gunas that we are conscious of reduce themselves to agunas, non attributes. In him, the Supreme Spirit, he is not bound by anything and is seen only by the development of a spiritual vision. As soon as the illusion caused by ignorance is dispelled, supreme unalloyed joy is attained. By giving up the objects of pleasure and pain, and by severing the bonds to the things of this earth, a man may attain Brahman and moksha. Brahmanottama. I have explained this to you in brief, as I have heard it. What else do you wish to know? Said the meat seller. That's Canto 212? Yeah. At least I tried to beg for a simple enough canto. Was it simple? Eh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But uh, yeah, let me. How do we even confront this much text? No, not just text. If it was empty text, it would be easy. Oh yeah, yeah. All of this we can ignore it. No, it's I think like 50% of it at the very least spiritual directly in different ways. I guess if you want to use a more quote unquote proper or common for us word philosophical text, so yeah, you cannot discard it, but let me do it rapidly. What do we have here? From the beginning of the explanation that the Witcher gives about what prana, purusha, and udanas are, it's all just basic ways of explaining the different emotions of the matters who exist in the world. Uh, Up to, yeah, yeah, Diana, and all of that, Apana, prana, all of that stuff are things that do not get to have almost any control. That we do not get to have almost any control over, because those are the qualities that are already present in all creatures. These are at the same time not utilized to particularly describe us, but rather explain rudimentary the ways in which matter itself is ordered in the rest of the world, so to speak. It's a sort of mythical explanation of the ways, yeah, about the ways in which creatures work. That is also why there are so many qualities all grouped up into these uh, founding forces, so to speak. They are not really something particular to anything. They are more like groups of definition allowing a basic conception of life. Uh, I guess it's it's an unfair but a proper example at the same time. You cannot classify something as a virus in that idea of, oh yeah, the most basic form life that we can properly identify as a form, as a life form, is the monocellular bacterias. Okay, it, this sort of stuff you cannot, you can't either apply it to stuff like viruses. You can to some degree say, oh yeah, they have I don't know, prana, apana. I can probably read properly this whole stuff again. Um, and one of them becomes more evidently probably a part of what a virus has to in some way. So yeah, it's just repeating myself for the fifth time. Rudimentary mode of explaining life on beings on animals in general. After that, you get to this, the sattvas, rajas, and tamas, which we already explained, not last, but the previous one canto, I think it was. Qualities, that those one, yeah, are sort of more of the human than anything else. All things contain a soul, but at the same time, not all souls get to experience sattva, raja, tamas. And that's so I don't know. That's sort of weird, but if they skip over it, I don't think me just pointing at that will make it more understandable. But yeah, uh, after that, the the way in which attaining enlightenment works and moksha is like, let's say like this, moksha is in modern worlds, you will say homeostasis with the environment, a level of perfect balance, of perfect momentary balance for the being. That is moksha. And stuff like unavoidably, yeah, what was it, enlightenment or enlightenment are unavoidably, yeah, that other higher concept of what a soul is. I guess also that's why it's hard to talk about that. We are not talking about enlightenment at all. We have enlightenment here mentioned. We have how it works. We are not talking about it still. Because, oh yeah, he whose actions are not performed for the sake of reward or blessing, he who has sacrificed everything to achieve renunciation. Uh, to solve the eternal mystery, the Guru can only set us on a path, which is to renounce the material world through yoga. Sorry. No one can teach a man to commune with Brahman, not even his spiritual guru. We don't have the possibility of directly addressing what the fuck. Sorry. What the hell leads to liberation of any sort and enlightenment. So that's also why I'm making that one particular highlight. We know that there is a concept of enlightenment, but once again, I guess enlightenment is only inwards, in an inner process, an inner realization, and whatnot, not something that you see, that you do outside of yourself. So yeah, that's Canto 100, 212, sorry. Now, at this point, I'm already worried or wary of how this whole works. Let me, I can do this. 213 is short enough. Let's try that one, and I guess after that one, probably Karata. I think so. It was good in terms of content, but yeah, incredibly dense cantos make it hard to stay for long without mentally exhausting oneself as rapidly. So yeah, let me continue. Canto 213. Markandeya Samasya Parava continued. Markandeya says, Yudhishthira, when the Brahmana heard the explanation of the subtle mystery of Mukti, he was overjoyed, and he said to the butcher, all that you have explained is sound, and it seems to me that there is nothing you do not know about the mysteries of true religion. The Vajra replied, good and great Brahmana, you will see for yourself the truth of all that I have told you, because of which I have attained this blissful state. Come into the inner apartment of my home. You should meet my parents. The Brahmana went in and saw a fine, beautiful mansion. It was a magnificent house divided into 4 suites of rooms. The Devas had admired each house, and indeed it looked like one of their own palaces. It was furnished with fine chairs and beds, and sweet perfumes hung in the air. The Mitzvah's parents, clad in white robes, had finished their meal and were seated at ease. The Butcher prostrated himself before them and touched his head to their feet. His elderly parent said to him, "Rise, O pious one, may Dharma shield you. We are always pleased with your goodness. May you be blessed with a long life, knowledge, and keen intelligence. May all your desires be fulfilled. You are a good and dutiful son, and you look after us so well. Indeed, you do not worship any good as you do us. By constantly controlling yourself, you have gained the discipline and power of Abrahamana. Your ancestors are gratified by your self-restraint and by the way you worship us. In thought, word, and action, your attention to us never flags, and it seems that you never have any thought in your mind except how to please us. Son, you work as hard to please us as Rama, the son of Hamadagni, did to please his older parents, even more. Then the Vajra introduced the Brahmana to his parents, and they received him with the customary salutations of welcome. The Brahmana accepted their welcome humbly, inquired if they, their children, and servants were in good health and happy. The aged couple replied, "Oh, Brahmana, we are all well. Were you able to reach this place without much difficulty?" The Brahmana replied that he had. Now that the meat vendor said to the Brahmana, now the meat vendor said to the Brahmana, "Worshipful one, my parents are the idols that I worship. Whatever is due to the gods, I do for them, just as men worship the 33 devas with Indra at their head. I worship my aged parents, just as Brahmanas strive to procure offerings to make to their gods. I work diligently to make offerings to these two deities of mine. My father and my mother, O Brahmana, are my supreme gods, and I want to please them always with offerings of flowers, fruit, and jewels to me. They are like the three sacred Agnis that learned men speak of, like the Yagnas or the four Vedas. My five pranas, my wife, children, and friends are all dedicated to their service. With my wife and children, I always attend on them. Brahmanutama, with my own hands I assist in their bathing, I wash their feet and give them food, and I speak to them only in pleasant matters and never what is unpleasant. I consider pleasing them to be my highest dharma, even if what that entails might not be justifiable, and I am always diligent in serving them. One's parents, the sacred fire, the soul and the spiritual guru, these five, Guru Brahmana, are worthy of the highest reverence by a person who seeks prosperity. By serving them properly, one acquires the punya of perpetually keeping the sacred fire burning. It is the eternal duty of all grihastas, said the vendor of meat, and that's Canto 213. Uh, it, it wasn't really a complicated idea. I was like, oh yeah, you know what? It's just 2 pages long, but taking into consideration how everything moves, this might also be yet another horrible to try to understand idea in terms of complexity, but no, it's just in reference to how this culture utilizes so much the adoration of parents as a requirement for goodness. It's something weird, I guess. What I can denote is, to some degree, it talks about the importance of having children, but also the necessity of tending adults at the same time, like the not even a duality, but more like a coordination of things, of events that must be given both at the same time. That is what feels like to begin with, and what also is complicated to properly analyze in terms of, oh yeah, wow, is this actually talking about just, I guess, serving one's own parents. I guess. Yeah, yeah. I remember that how they always stuck out the tradition of, oh yeah, you live with your parents and take care of them until they die, literally. It also doesn't serve for that in terms of fully explaining why it is such a necessity. I can only assume that it is utilized as a mode of demonstration that even one of the most perfect beings, Satya, is still endowed to his parents, so he takes care of them to such a degree. So much so that his whole family is almost oriented towards that, not just him. But yeah, this is more like an outlandish remark of sorts, I guess, or unrelated. It's just and it's positive to remind ourselves, yeah, you know what? Take care of your parents. This is part of our culture. So yeah, I mean, I don't even see anything that says fully exactly why. But yeah, whatever. I guess I kinda lied. So let me see. Yeah, this one is only 3 pages long. We can also do this one. Now, for real. This one is the last one. Sorry for being undecisive, but I guess we what I already said. If we don't move faster on this book, it's going to take a fucking decade at this rate. So, Canto 214. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. Having introduced his parents to the Brahmana as his highest gurus, the Vajra said, now you see the power of my Dharma, which has enhanced my inner spiritual vision. It is for this purpose that the lady who is self-restrained, truthful, and devoted to her husband told you to go to Mithila to meet the Vajra who will explain the mysteries of religion to you. The Brahmana said, Swan, Swan, so steadfast in fulfilling your Dharma. I remember what the chaste Devi said, and I am convinced that you are truly endowed with every fine quality. The Vacha replied, I have no doubt that the good woman explained all this to you. Now listen to me, and I will tell you what will benefit you. Brahman of impeachable character, you have wronged your father and mother by leaving home without their permission. In order to study the Vedas, you have not acted properly in this matter, because your sannyasi parents are old and have been blinded by their grief at losing you. Return home to console them, and may this always stand you in good stead. You have a noble mind and great tapasya Shakti, and you are at about, but these qualities have not benefited you. Go back immediately and comfort your parents. Take my advice seriously, because what I say is for your well. Brahmana, go home today. The Brahmana said, surely you speak the truth. May you prosper, pious one. I am pleased with you. The Vajra said, Brahmana, your perseverance in the practice of the divine energies Sanatana Dharma, which even the pure-minded find so difficult to attain, makes you seem like a god. Return to your parents' side and waste no time in adoring them. I do not know of any higher Dharma than this. The Rahamana said, it is my singular good fortune that has brought me here, and I am lucky to have met you. It is very difficult to find in our midst one who can explain the mysteries of Dharma. There is hardly even one man in 1,000 who is so knowledgeable about Dharma. I am glad, O great one, to have your friendship. May you prosper. You have pulled me back from the brink of hell. I know this is my destiny because of the manner in which you came into my life. You have saved me just as his grandson saved the fallen King Yayati. I will follow your advice and honor my father and mother. I know you are pure-hearted because no man whose heart is solid could unravel the subtle intricacies of Dharma. It is difficult indeed for a Sudra to understand these profound and complex concepts, and this puzzles me. You must have been born a Sudra because of your past karma. Most generous one. I am eager to know the truth about what is. Tell me about it, as you see fit. The Vajra replied, Good Brahmana, I revere Brahmanas. Listen, sinless one, to the story of my previous life. In my previous life, I was a Brahmana, well read in the Vedas, and an accomplished student of the Vedangas. It is my own fault that I have been degraded to my present condition. A king, a skilled archer who was accomplished in Dhanurveda, the science of archery, was my friend. And from being his companion, O Brahmana, I too became a good archer. One day, the king, with his ministers and best warriors, went hunting. He killed a large number of deer near a hermitage. I, too, good Brahmana, shot a swift, fierce arrow which wounded a rishi while his head was bent in prayer. He fell down on the ground, screaming, and he cried, I have done no harm to any man. What sinful man has done this to me? My lord, I assumed I had shot a deer and went up, only to find a rishi, his body pierced by my arrow. I was dismayed by the evil thing I had done, and said to that sage of great punya who lay wailing on the ground, I did it unwittingly, O rishi, you must forgive me my sin. But, O Brahmana, Teresa said to me, You will be born as a cruel butcher in the Sudra caste, said the meat seller. That's Canto 214. That's more like the story of this guy. Yeah. Uh, Reminder to take care of your parents. That's the quick round of this canto. Take care of your family. But yeah, I know. Is there much more? Yes, there is. But anyways, we are not going to focus on what we still have to read. That's meaningless. What we have to read right now is ahead of us, and that is for the next time. I guess so. What a process. What a good slow cooking process, I guess. But yeah, um, let me this one. Thank you. There we are. Well done. That's it for today. Yes. Good night. Have a wonderful night. Have a good rest. Uh, See you next round. Thank you for everything. It was great. But yeah, damn.